What if your dog's worst destructive behavior is really a silent plea for mental stimulation, safer outlets, or better materials? Welcome to The Dog Who Asked for More, the podcast helping dog parents who feel stuck and overwhelmed by their pup finally let go of the guilt, learn to communicate clearly, and build the bond you've always dreamed of through a partnership-based approach that combines training, nutrition, and enrichment instead of chasing the quick fixes that don't actually work. I'm Em. You'll learn how Soda Pup turned one pet parent's frustration into durable enrichment forward products made in the USA, why modern power chewer toys fail and what features actually survive real dogs, and how you can use thoughtful enrichment materials and listening to give your dog a voice beyond behavior struggles. Today, I'm joined by Adam and Chris, co-founders of Soda Pup, and they specialize in tough chew toys, slow feeders, lick mats, and enrichment systems for especially powerful chewers designed for longevity, safety, and joy. Adam, would you please tell me the story of how Soda Pup began?
I was actually working in the sporting goods industry at the time that I started thinking about the pet industry. We, at the time, had 3 dogs and 2 cats and were big animal lovers. And honestly, I started walking through pet stores more from a professional perspective than from a private dog owner perspective. And the thing that struck me is that it was always the same stuff that was there. It never really changed. After a while, it was a bit boring. And so I thought to myself, could we create really functional products like the products that were already on the shelves, but could we somehow make them more interesting to the people that are actually buying the products, which is primarily women. In the beginning, the idea was to create really functional products that were safe and American made, FDA compliant, but check all those boxes of if you could have it all, what would you want? And you would want durable toys that are safe for your dog, preferably made in the USA. And if they look really cool, that's a great benefit as well. And so we kind of started from there and started creating the Soda Pup brand. Probably the biggest difference is trying to create designs that captivate the imagination of the person who's actually doing the buying.
Well, you have beautiful designs, and I am a colorful person. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a colorful person. I have rainbow
We're
hair and
inspired
rainbow
by your hair
tattoos.
color.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very appealing to me. And I'm sure anybody watching can see the color behind you. You have a variety of colors and patterns and all kinds of things, which just it does make it fun because when we get involved in our dog's enrichment, it should be fun for us too. And a little bit of color never hurt anybody. So there's nothing wrong with that.
But if you make it fun for the consumer, they're more likely to do it, which is better.
Exactly. And then, Chris, you kind of expanded the mission by starting your podcast, which I was recently a guest on. Would you tell everybody a little bit about why you decided to expand in that direction?
Well, if you had told me a year ago that I would be hosting a podcast, I would have said you were out of your mind. But we talked about this idea for quite a while, and we were really just wanting to expand the conversation about enrichment. That was one aim. And the other thing that we really wanted to do was to celebrate the people that use our products. Some of the people that we do have on the podcast are people who are just out there doing enrichment day by day and doing really interesting and beautiful things. So we wanted to meet those people, talk to them about their experience and shine the spotlight on them a little bit.
Very cool. What do you each see as your role in making enrichment?
My role is to build beautiful product that get people excited about doing enrichment with their dogs and to create a business that allows that to happen.
And I am tend to be home with the dogs more. So my role, at least personally in our enrichment lives, is to actually serve up enrichment for our dogs. And then, of course, as we just talked about, to try to extend the conversation on the Soda Pup Enrichment Lab podcast.
Many pet parents experience toys that break in minutes. Can you tell me about maybe the key materials or design decisions you make at Soda Pup so that you can ensure products last?
Sure. The reality is that I don't think there's really any such thing as an indestructible dog toy, but there are things that you can do to improve your chances of having a long-lasting dog toy. We use a range of different materials in our products. So if you look at our dog toys, The first products we made were natural rubber products. And the nice thing about natural rubber is that it's what's called a cross-linked polymer. During the curing process in the injection molding machine under high heat and pressure, the molecules actually change. They cross-link. And when they cross-link, then it has really great tear strength. And so it's more difficult for a dog to destroy a natural rubber dog toy. Now, the thing about rubber is that not all rubber is alike, right? So we engineered a compound specifically for high tear strength. And what that means is we have very few fillers in the material. When you buy usually, and these are generalizations, but when you buy a rubber dog toy produced in China at a really low price, you're like, how can they afford to make a toy for this price? Well, the reality is they're putting a ton of clay into the rubber material. And when you add fillers like that, which is quite common, that means there's less natural rubber. And if there's less natural rubber, then there's less cross-linking. And so those products don't have the same tear strength. And so even though our product and their product both look like natural rubber that feel the same, they don't actually perform the same. It's a little bit of buyer beware. And with Soda Pup, like I said, we've engineered a really premium rubber compound. And we offer a 30-day replacement guarantee because we're confident that the material will hold up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is designs have a very big impact on the durability of a dog toy. So for example, if you look at a product shaped like some things you've seen before, but things like that, even like that, which is it's an awesome toy, but where dogs destroy it is on the small globe at the top because they can get it in their back teeth. And if they can get it into their back teeth, then they can kind of saw through it because they have a lot of leverage. For example, when we made our snowman toy, the difference between this and the other toys I just showed you is that both snowballs are the same size. And so just by a simple design change, it's very difficult for a dog to get this toy into its back teeth to be able to destroy it. So certainly the shape, the design of the toy has a lot to do with the durability as well as the material. We also make nylon chew toys, and nylon is a very, very hard material. So dogs can't destroy it in the same way that they can destroy a rubber chew toy. And nylon behaves in a different way. You actually have to engineer the material to be softer than a dog's teeth. Because if a dog is really aggressive and bites down too hard, if your material is too hard, then the dog will break his teeth on the toy. And so you actually have to engineer the nylon material to be softer. So the material will lose in a battle between the dog's teeth and the material. And so that's why nylon toys will fray as dogs chew on them. And that's actually by design. That's a safety measure to prevent the dog from damaging his teeth. It also creates a rough, bristly surface, which helps keep the dog's teeth clean. It improves their breath, gets rid of plaque and things like that. So there's a benefit to those materials wearing down with use. There's a lot of products in the pet industry that are just kind of cheap and cheerful. They get destroyed immediately.
Have you ever had any issues with dogs swallowing that nylon?
No, that's never happened. There's warnings. Obviously, if the dog is wearing the toy down to a nub, then that becomes a choking hazard. And so it's really on the pet parent to understand when it's time to throw that toy away. Although with most dogs, if you look at the way that they chew a bone shape, a nylon bone, most dogs will just chew on the knuckles. And when they're done with the knuckles, they're not really interested in the shaft on the toy. So we actually designed a product. This is a nylon toy called the Honey Bone. And we actually designed this partly with enrichment capabilities so that you could put food in the groove. And the deep grooves were designed specifically because dogs like texture. And so we wanted a really heavy texture on the knuckle. But the really interesting thing about this toy is because we realized that dogs weren't chewing on the shaft of the toy, we actually took a lot of the weight and material out of the shaft. You can see it's kind of like an I-beam construction. Sorry, I'm geeking out on you. I'm a dog toy nerd. But the idea was to eliminate all that waste because most dogs are going to chew the knuckles and then you're going to throw the thing away. And you don't need it for strength. So that informed the design of this product. Not to mention it looks like a honey dipping stick, which fits beautifully in our honey pot.
I love that. And geek out because the people who are listening are probably really interested in this kind of stuff. I'm interested in this kind of stuff. I want to know why it's designed the way it is. But to your point, I am a big proponent of be invested, be involved, be aware of what your dog is doing. Pay attention. You Give your dog a lick mat or a toy or whatever because you need to get stuff done. Fine. But don't just not observe what is happening because that is when accidents happen. I worked in a veterinary clinic for a long time.
It's kind of like the classic plush toy. You've got subscription boxes out there that put 2 or 3 plush toys in a box and then some treats, and then your dog destroys the toys in the first couple of days and then poops polyester for a couple of days, and then they're on to the next box. That's probably not so great for your dog either. So, yeah, it's important to supervise your pet. Even if you trust the toy, you should supervise your pet.
How do you test the durability of your toys and bowls and everything?
With things like the nylon and the rubber, those have all been tested in a lab, mostly tested for food safety. All of our products meet FDA compliance standards. The standard is actually a little weird. The standard that's used is for food containers for storage. And so the test is crazy. You put the material in some very acidic solution for hours, and then you heat it and you try to get it to leach out nasty stuff. It's so kind of over the top crazy because it's not any condition that these materials would actually be used in our products, because we're not making food containers for storage per se. But that's the standard that's applied. And then the other thing, we make things and we learn. You try stuff and some things don't hold up, and then we discontinue them, and then we learn, and then we move on to the next toy, try to make something that's going to last longer. This is one of our least well-known toys, but it's one of my favorites. This is called the Double Trouble. Now, I don't know if you know the history of Kong, but the guy that founded Kong, Joe Markham, he was a Volkswagen mechanic. And the original Kong dog toy was a suspension part from a VW microbus. And he had a German Shepherd, and he would take the parts off the cars and throw it out in the yard for his dog. And he saw that his dog liked to chew on it, so he developed a dog toy. So that's kind of the genesis of Kong. We have a work van, Ram ProMaster van, and I was in the parts department at my Ram dealer getting something for the van, and I saw a display about a suspension part for a pickup truck. And it helps prevent the bed of the pickup truck from sagging when you're carrying a very heavy load. And it looked like this. And so, except that it was cut in half. And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. That would be a cool dog toy. But what I like about it, and the reason we call it the Double Trouble, is because it's wide on both ends, just like our snowman. And so it's very difficult for a dog to get this in his back teeth. So super durable toy. It's not as visually compelling as some of our other designs, but very, very functional.
Do your own dogs test the durability of your products? Do you put them through the ringer in your own home with your own dogs?
Yeah, and it's interesting with dogs. They all have different preferences. So over the years, we've had some dogs that really like rubber toys. We had a black lab named Buddy. We lost him a couple of years ago, but Buddy was a great rubber toy tester because we adopted him as an adult, and he came with baggage. And the way he dealt with stress was by chewing on stuff. So he was a great rubber toy tester, but he didn't care about nylon at all. Now we have a dog named Ladybug, and Ladybug loves nylon, so she's a good tester. But and we've had a lot of dogs over the years. We have Ladybug and Sugar Plum now. And Sugar Plum, she'll use rubber treat dispensers, but not to chew on, only for getting the treats. And she's not a nylon chewer, at least not anymore. She's getting old.
And she's semi-interested in like lick mats. Neither of the dogs we have now are uber food motivated, but depending on what you put on the lick mat, you can get them interested in for at least for a little while.
What do you think has been your biggest challenge with your own personal dogs and putting enrichment into their daily lives?
Well, I would say, I mean, for me, some of it is planning ahead. And then again, right now, in terms of food-based enrichment, our dogs are not super food motivated. And so sometimes if I'm going to provide food-based enrichment, I really have to think about it. One of the things I've discovered with both of the dogs that we have now is that they don't really tend to go for things that are frozen. And I don't know if it's the temperature or if there's not as much scent or what it is, but I've learned that I can put lick mats or stuffable toys in the freezer. But if I'm going to give them to them and have them at least be immediately interested, then I need to take them out a little in advance and give them a little bit of time to start to warm up. One of the things that I have been learning about more, partly because I've had to, because I can't rely so much on food-based enrichment, is just other kinds of enrichment. So I have become be more aware of that and ways to provide that.
You know what a lot of people do in terms of food-based enrichment, because we all lead busy lives, as Chris mentioned, takes some forethought and planning to be able to do this consistently and well. But what a lot of people do will be on a Sunday night, they'll mix up a week's worth of moist food, and then they'll have an array of devices, different slow feeder bowls and lick mats and things like enrichment cups like the honey pot, and enrichment toys, and they stuff it all and pack it all in the freezer so that during the week when they're really on the go, they can just kind of grab and go. That's one way to help overcome the planning challenge, because you don't have to think about it every day. You can just think about it once a week.
The planning part is kind of clutch for most people. Having the ability to plan for a few days or even a week ahead of time is phenomenal. And I like to make little treats, that frozen treats or whatever, in like little ice cube trays, and then put them all in like a Pyrex dish with a lid so they don't get the frostbite on them and things like that. That helps too. Because like you, my dog, if it's got freezer burn at all, he's not eating it. He's just not. It's okay for them to have their own preferences, especially when it comes to food. And I think a lot of people struggle with the picky eater thing. I did for years and years and years, but it really, I think, just comes down to experimentation, like you said, figuring out what they like and then being conscious of that and mixing it up for them. Because if I had to eat the same thing every single day, I would be so bored and so mad, especially if it was kibble. Like, gross, bland, boring, yuck. So I
Right.
really do feel like enrichment is one of those things where it gives us a moment to give our dogs something extra, and we should absolutely take advantage of that.
With our dogs, mixing it up makes, I think, a big difference for them.
Yeah.
Makes it harder for them to go back to the basics. They get a little spoiled when you start giving them freeze-dried chicken and all the other goodies that are out there now.
Yeah. Well, and it really requires paying some attention, right? Especially if you've got more than one dog or animal and they're not super food motivated, is that you really have to do some experimentation and paying attention to what's a winner and what's not. And like with our sugar plum, I think I have determined that she really does not like flaxseed. And so there was a brand of peanut butter that we were using, and she would eat it, and then suddenly she just turning her nose up at peanut butter, and I thought, what is going on? And then I realized that the formulation had changed and there was flax in it. And I've noticed there's some other treats that we have and that they have flax in them. She doesn't want anything to do with them. And so some of it's just that kind of sussing out, what do they like, what do they not like, what maybe is affecting, like I said, like the temperature, what is affecting their willingness to engage with stuff.
And food sensitivities too. Maybe it doesn't make her feel good when she eats that.
That could be, yeah.
It could be so many different things. But again, enrichment is one of those things where we just kind of dive in with curiosity that
Yeah.
makes us ask those questions and dig a little bit deeper. I want to jump back to the conversation about the rubber compounds, because it's my understanding that you have different rubber compounds for each of your toys. So if someone came to you and said, Adam, I have a dog that does this, this, and this, how would you go about recommending which toys to give that person?
So we actually use two different rubber compounds. One is natural rubber, which I was describing before, and the other is a synthetic rubber compound that we've also developed in conjunction with a supplier. And it's also engineered for high tear strength, but in reality, it's not quite as high as the natural rubber. The properties are somewhat different. Now, there are other benefits to our PupX material. One is that it's odor-free. Natural rubber comes with an odor that we try to mitigate in the formulation, but you can't get rid of it altogether. So if somebody has a real power chewer dog, I'm going to recommend a natural rubber dog toy over one of the toys that we make in the PupX material. The other thing where we do use PupX, we're using it in things that are less chewing specific, like the end use isn't really hardcore chewing. So it's a reasonable place to use the material. The other thing that's interesting about material choices is that oftentimes we equate hardness of a material with durability. So our nylon material is really, really hard. And so you think, oh, that's got to be really strong. That's not necessarily true with rubber. If your rubber material is too hard, then it provides resistance when your dog is biting on it. And that resistance allows them to chew pieces off. And so one of the materials that we've developed is really, really soft. And we put it in our squeaker balls, and we're getting ready to release some new products, retrieving balls, things of that nature. And they're really soft. And what's interesting is these balls, even though the material is quite soft, they don't get destroyed. And the reason is because the dog is getting the gratification of squeezing the toy, chomping on it. And so it's not providing the resistance for them to like literally bite into it and get a chunk and pull it out. And so it's a little bit counterintuitive. You'd think, oh, these soft toys are just going to get demolished, and then they don't. So we're really excited about some newer things that are coming out soon, made from that soft material.
I'm excited to try that out. I have a ball obsessed dog, and his favorite thing to do is sit there and chew on the ball. He will entertain himself for hours if I just let him sit there and chew on the ball. So it's all about finding that right ball that gives him just a little bit of room to wiggle and move versus him just shredding the thing into a million pieces. So I'd be happy to put yours to the test and see how it goes.
We'll send you some samples. You can give it a go.
I'm going to just hold up a couple of things here for anybody who's watching to see. Unfortunately, we'll have to describe everything for listening. But the thing that I really like about what you guys do here is you do themes. And I love that because I am one of those people that I decorate a certain way and I pick certain colors for certain rooms and things like that. So being able to have like a theme to create a whole day of enrichment for my dog, we go from the honey pot to the lick stick, and then we get the mats, and these ones are all yellow. They all have a honeycomb design and they all have bees on them. And I absolutely love it. I think this is probably my favorite one. So I was really thrilled when I opened the box and this is what I found. But I really want to talk about this, the lick stick, because I am still just totally enamored with this thing. As a trainer and somebody who has worked on teaching my dog to follow a stick and do nose touches to a stick, and also then using a spatula to help the dog with anxiety in the car or a lick mat on the window and things like that, this thing is going to be a lifesaver for me because the biggest problem with a spoon or a spatula is that after the peanut butter is done being frozen, it just slides right off. But with this, it has like a divot, like it goes in. So if I spread it out enough, even if they lick some of it off, it's still going to stay inside of here. But it also, like you said, dogs like texture because they can sense that and understand that. And that's calming for their brains with their tongue. So now you've got like this little enrichment stick that can be used for training and enrichment at the same time, which is just so cool. So could you tell me how the heck you came up with the idea for this thing? Because I am so obsessed with it.
Well, so first of all, that was a great explanation. You're hired. The consumer insight is that people were doing just like you said. They're using rubber spatulas and wooden spoons with peanut butter. What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. So people were creating their own product, if you will, to satisfy this need. But there were drawbacks to a wooden spoon or a spatula. Like you said, food will run off of it. They're not long enough, really, for a lot of people, particularly if you have a smaller dog. And so because we are enrichment focused, we're always looking for ways to bring this type of thinking into new products. So here were some precursors to the lick stick. The first was when we got into nylon dog toys, I thought, well, what can we do that's different and meaningful? Because Lord knows there's enough dog toy brands out there making bone-shaped nylon chew toys. The world doesn't need more bones. And so one of the products we created was the Peanut. And really what the Peanut is a lick mat made out of nylon. Your dog can chew on it. Your dog can lick it. We were looking for a way to morph a nylon chew toy into an enrichment product. And that's what this became. And then we thought, okay, we have enrichment bowls. We have shallow enrichment bowls that we call enrichment trays, E trays. We have enrichment mats, E mats. And then I thought, okay, if your dog has separation anxiety, you need to leave the house. You can't give your dog a lick mat because it's thin and it's made out of a rubbery material, and your dog's going to destroy it. So you have to supervise the dog with a lick mat. So I thought, well, what could we create to solve this problem? And we created a product that we call an e-coin. So this is made of nylon, but it's basically a small, super hard licking device that you can give your dog if you have separation anxiety, and you would be safe to leave your dog alone with it. It's too big for the dog to choke on. It's more durable than a lick mat. Okay, so the next evolution of this is just putting it on a stick. Well, most innovation is incremental. It's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. And so that was the idea, was to say, well, what if we could create a more useful enrichment device to replace a wooden spoon? And then it's the texture that keeps the food in there because it provides friction, if you will. And it's also the thing that satisfies the dog because dogs love texture. And then I just love the fact that you love that we've built themes into the product line, because I don't know of any other company that's doing that. And that's really a different discipline altogether. And that's more of a merchandising discipline, to say, if we create a bowl and a lick mat and a lick stick and a rubber treat dispenser and an enrichment cup, and what if we weave it all together over time? And of course, we didn't build all these products at the same time. We've built them over years. And so oftentimes I will go back and say, okay, if we're going to create this new device, how can we tie it into something else that we're doing? Ultimately, merchandising is storytelling. We want to tell a story. And we're trying to get consumers to fall in love with Soda Pup, not necessarily with any one product, but with everything that we do and why we do it and how we do it. And so being able to create these diverse product types and tie it all together around a theme it's lovely storytelling, and it helps an independent pet retailer do really creative merchandising in their stores, which, no big box retailer is ever going to do. They don't have the kind of the bandwidth to do that kind of thing. And so we're also giving independent pet retailers additional tools to bring these product stories to life if they buy into the bigger concept. And, it's been fascinating to watch on Instagram, because there are consumers out there that are buying all these things from us. And then they're doing this incredible imagery, and they're doing the merchandising in the images that they're posting, which is so gratifying for us to see that people are paying attention to what we're doing.
And it's a matching set. People get collars and leashes and harnesses that match, and then their treat bag needs to match, and then maybe their own purse or rain jacket needs to match. And then the next thing you know is you see this lady walking down the street and everything is purple floral, and everybody knows that she's coming and who her dog is, because they've accessorized together. And that's literally what you're doing with this.
Yeah, and we have lots of themes. We do have floral themes that work across the line as well. And then, we have a lot of outdoor oriented things. We have a lot of ocean oriented things. So the honey inspiration is just one of probably 5 or 6 major themes we've built across the product line.
My favorite thing about the honeycomb is the design here. I'm going to hold it up again for the viewers. But these are, they're deep. My finger can go into each one of these. My favorite thing to do with a lick mat like this is to take an egg and scramble it, and then pour it on here and then microwave it for 2 minutes. That will last your dog forever, especially in something like this where they actually have to dig in there to get it out. And also, it's flexible. So if your dog bends it up to get it out, it's not going to damage it. And that, I think, is also something that's really important, because sometimes you get lick mats and they're too stiff, or they're not stiff enough, and then they just crack or tear apart. And that hasn't been the case with yours.
We did our first lick mat in 2020, so not that long ago. And now we have 35 or so different lick mat SKUs. So we have done a lot with lick mats. I come from the sporting goods industry, specifically apparel and footwear. I tested a lot of lick mats before I designed one. And I really liked the idea, but I didn't like the products that I tested. I thought they were flimsy. I thought they didn't take my dog very long to lick clean. So I was like, how much enrichment is my dog really getting here? They warped in the dishwasher. There were a lot of things. And so it's like, okay, interesting idea, not thrilled with the execution. So that's where I started from. And my dog Buddy, who we mentioned earlier, Buddy was very food motivated and he could lick, competing product. He could lick that clean in under 5 minutes. And so I was like, okay, I got to create something really hard to take Buddy, 40, 45 minutes. So we set out to make more difficult lick mats. That was the first objective. And now if you look at our total range, we have a range of easy, moderate, and difficult lick mats. And we actually use a rating scale on our packaging to indicate how difficult the mat is. So you can match the food drive. If I give Ladybug a very difficult lick mat, she's going to lose interest. She just doesn't care that much about food. So we have to use easier products with her to keep her engaged. As an example, the first design we did was called the jigsaw. And it's literally a jigsaw pattern. And one of the things we noticed was people were decorating the jigsaw. So they're literally like mixing up yogurt with spirulina and other things for different colors. And they're essentially painting by numbers. And because the jigsaw design had all of these self-contained shapes, that's what allowed them to put different colors in each of the shapes. Whereas most lick mats up until then were things like nubs. If you put liquid in it, it would just spread throughout the mat. While with ours, if you put liquid in it, it would be held in that space. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? I didn't expect people to do this with a lick mat, to decorate it. It was fascinating to me. But of course, people were home during the pandemic and they're stuck and they're looking for things to do and they're getting dogs and treating their dogs like their children. They express love through food. That's how a lot of moms express love for their children. And so anyway, we recognized this decorating phenomenon. And it was also a social media phenomenon because it's not enough to decorate it. You got to take a picture of it and show everybody what you did. And so there's this performative element to it as well. And so I thought, okay, that's really interesting. What if we do more designs that also have that ability to decorate? And so we leaned heavily into that. And now, if you look at our lick mats, any of our shallow slow feeders, our deep slow feeder bowls, they all have that characteristic. And that has fed social media, and people have just been doing unbelievable, beautiful designs, which, again, it was just that one insight is like, oh, what if we keep doing that and lean into that? What would people do? And so one of the most fun things for me to do is to create a new design for like a bowl and putting it out there and just waiting to see what people post on Instagram.
People do some wild stuff with that.
Well, they do. And one of the things that's been really interesting in terms of talking to our customers on the podcast is to find out the degree to which, for a lot of people, they love decorating and filling the bowls or the lick mats because they like giving really healthy food to their dog and a real variety of food. But I have also been really struck by the degree to which people have told me how therapeutic it is for them as a creative outlet, just personally for them. And so it serves this, for a lot of people, it serves this dual purpose. It's nurturing and taking good care of their pet, but it's also nurturing them, which I didn't expect.
It's just a really cool combo. I have several friends who are really, really masters of decorating their bowls or lick mats for their dogs. I mean, to the point where they buy themed cookies and dried flowers, and they have all different colors of the spirulina. I mean, it's unbelievable to me, but it's so much fun to watch. And I mean, I get it. It's quite soothing. I understand why some people paint or do artistic things. It's probably the same kind of mental emotional release for us, like you said, that the dog is getting from having the benefit of the lick mat. So what a neat thing to accidentally stumble upon.
Yeah.
It's incredibly gratifying. When we started this business back in 2013, it was a hobby business in the basement. I wanted to see, first of all, if we could create something from nothing in an industry where I had no experience, no contacts, and literally create something from nothing. But the bigger question was, could I apply the principles that I learned earlier in my career in a different industry and apply those principles and get people to fall in love with a pet supply company, which is a little bit unheard of. I knew that we didn't want to behave like a traditional pet supply company. We wanted to behave more like a consumer products company, which is to say, to create beautiful objects of desire that consumers can have an emotional connection with. And so what's been so interesting is to kind of watch this unfold. And it's come about because we've paid attention to how people are responding and we're learning. And like I said, I mean, I've designed a lot of junk and it's not in the line anymore. You try things and you see what works and what doesn't. You get rid of the stuff that doesn't, learn from the successes and the failures, and then keep iterating and take consumers on a journey through all these new products. And so it's been the whole kind of Instagram piece has just been wild for us.
It is a crazy creative world out there, that is for sure.
And it's an instant feedback loop. It's like a focus group in real time.
I love that it does something positive for your business because social media, it can go one way or the other. So hearing a positive story about how social media has affected your business is really, it's heartwarming, and it gives me some hope for how it will be in the future for others.
What's gratifying for me is that we're helping people in a way that I didn't anticipate. Like Chris said, for a lot of people, this is therapeutic. And if our designs inspire and help in that journey for that consumer, I mean, that's just a bonus, right? It's interesting. I feel like we're doing a duet.
And you've created a community. And I love that you said full circle, because what I would love to do is I would love to add something to that full circle, because I think a lot of people misinterpret dog behavior. Dogs do things to communicate when their needs are not met. In your experience, how do owners misinterpret or miss those cues? And how can they use your products to help keep their dogs from behaving in ways that they don't want them to?
A lot of the enrichment products and enrichment activities, it offers dogs the ability to engage in what are natural behaviors to them. And I think sometimes that people have the impression that, I don't know, maybe if you let your dog chew on something or you let your dog shred a cardboard box or something like that, that you are going to encourage your dog to chew on other things or to shred the couch cushions. But I think the opposite is actually the case. If you give them sanctioned ways to satisfy those behaviors, then they're not going to be eating your couch or licking a hole in the rug when they're anxious. So a lot of providing food-based enrichment, which is what our products do, and also provide for chewing outlets to behavior. It provides dogs outlets for things that they really need and things that they normally do. So we're actually helping them by giving them those opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think that that is probably where a lot of people get lost. Enrichment is not a bonus, it's not extra. It is something that should be given every single day, every single day. So we're adding a new segment to the show, and it's called Brain Boost. This is for enrichment episodes. And what I would love is if you could give a simple enrichment idea with or without your products to help a listener help their dog release stress, feel safe, and engage their brain in meaningful ways.
Sure. One of the first one that comes to mind is one that doesn't require any kind of toy or lick mat or equipment. And that is to just scatter feed outside in the yard, or on a rainy day, you could do it inside for treats for walking. We use a freeze dried raw food. The pieces are pretty small. And so when I get back from a walk, in particular, Sugar Plum is very interested in this, and she's ready. When we get back from the walk, she starts dancing around saying to me, let's do that thing. And I just take a handful of the treats and I just fling them into the yard. And then she snuffles around and finds all the food. And she gets excited about that every single day.
And dogs combine their senses. They smell, they taste, they hear, they think, all of these things together. And it does, it really helps them bring that mental, emotional level to where they need it to be. Somebody described it to me as, think about when you were a child and you would go to school all day and you would read and you would do math, and then you would go outside and play for recess, and then you would come back in and maybe you would have a nap, or maybe you would just have quiet time, but then you would go back into the whole routine again and you would go to different subjects all day long. And then you would come home from school and you would play and you would eat dinner, and then you would just be zonked for the night. And that really hit me because for so many of us, until we learned about enrichment, that's what our dogs were doing. They were just sitting at home doing nothing all day. So take your dog to school with enrichment. Give them something to do. Give them new places to go, new scents to smell, new things to see and hear and taste that tap into their predatory sequences, that tap into those natural instincts that are worming around in their brains, and give them some relief. It's really easy to look past that when we're not thinking about dog brain. But once you understand dog brain, it really transforms how you look at your dog.
Well, and I think we're so used to thinking about in sort of the traditional understanding of pet dogs in particular. We're just used to the idea of you take them on a walk twice a day and that's going to satisfy their needs. And that's great. I mean, obviously exercise is a really important part of that, but there are so many other things that we have come to recognize as being important to their physical and their mental well-being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for being here today. I would love to know what you would like to leave the person listening with today. It doesn't have to be on topic. It can just be something straight from your heart, or it can be telling them to shop your products.
And I, would love for you to try our products, but I will also say on the other end of that is that in order to do enrichment with your dog, you don't have to invest in a lot, or there are many, many ways that you can do it without investing in anything, or with things that you have around the house or at really low cost. And so I would just encourage people to educate themselves and then to not be afraid to experiment, and that it doesn't have to be perfect and beautiful unless you want to make it beautiful. It'll, your dog will love it either way. And if it makes you feel great to make it beautiful, do that too.
We have covered a lot today, from why durability matters to how enrichment gives your dog an outlet for energy and prevent problem behaviors. But most importantly, we've seen that enrichment isn't about spoiling your dog. It's about giving them what they're really asking for. So remember, be kind, spread joy, and remember, enrichment isn't extra, it's essential. Dig in, be creative, and try Soda Pup. You can use code TRY-US, try-us, for 20% off your first purchase with Soda Pup. Thank you for listening to The Dog Who Asked for More, and for giving your dog this time through your learning. If your dog is bouncing off the walls, no matter how much you walk them, it can feel like nothing is ever enough. The truth is, most dogs don't need more exercise. They need the right kind of enrichment to settle their brains and their bodies. That's why I put together a free enrichment resource packed with easy, fun ideas that you can try right away. You'll find the link in the show notes. New episodes drop every Monday and Wednesday. I'll see you next time.